Hello, my name is John Fowler. I'm a safety manager with National Exploration Drilling and Pumps. We are a mineral exploration drilling contractor, so we work in mines looking for ore, also dewatering, that kind of thing. I've been in drilling for quite a while. I started off in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, working on the big rigs up there, drilling 30,000-foot exploration holes, oil, gas. So I did that for a few years, and then I got the opportunity to go to Antarctica. And I actually spent 4 years at the U.S. South Pole Station in Antarctica doing drilling, scientific drilling. I may not look like much of a runner. I know Satish was just talking about running marathons, but I can say I've run around the world because that right there is the exact bottom of the earth, and I did run around it. So I can say I've run around the world. It didn't take me very long either, so I'm good with that. I got to go to Greenland, and I've been able to get to within 13 miles of the geographic North Pole. Up on the ice, we were actually measuring the sea ice thickness up there. So I just like to talk about that. I love drilling. I've been doing drilling for about 20 years now. Originally I was a driller, and then obviously now I'm into safety, and I just like it. It takes you some really interesting places. A lot of times really not an interesting place, but every now and then you get to go somewhere interesting. What do all those pictures have in common? Anybody notice?
Cold?
That's exactly right, cold. So then I do all this ice scientific drilling, and then I get hired on in mineral exploration, and they send me to Arizona, down to Tucson in the summertime. So I'm definitely built for the cold, not the heat. So I did mineral exploration drilling for a few years as well. So what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about training. So I'm going to talk about how we're training in the digital age. I'm going to talk about paper training, so what we've been doing as far as training goes, as far as training certificates. We'll talk about how we track those paper training certificates. And then I'm going to talk about how we at National have begun training using training packages, and also how the GroundHog LMS app can actually help us and assist us with our training. And then not only the actual filling out of the training certificates, but also tracking them and easily being able to look and see who has what training, who needs what training, that kind of thing. And then we've actually rolled that technology, or used that technology to roll out a career advancement system. So now we've gone beyond just getting past paper training and doing digital training. Now we actually have a full career advancement system for our guys, and really it's the GroundHog LMS app. It's being able to do it digitally that has allowed us to accomplish this. And then at the end, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take questions. So paper training, obviously that's where we all started from. Everybody on the rigs, when I was a driller, we all had our red books like that. And you had all kinds of pieces of paper in there, and you'd usually, if you were good, you would write on them, that's the 420E backhoe, so that you kind of knew what was going on. But what are some of the drawbacks? There are a ton of drawbacks to this paper training. Our operations are spread out, like I said, all across Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. We have 23 drill rigs, so we have 23 different little areas, different little crews that are completing these paper training, or that used to be completing these paper trainings. So we'd get them back, and there would be all kinds of problems with them. So these are some of the kinds that we would get, some of the kind of 5023s that we would actually get in the office. You can't control what people write down for tasks. So what do I mean by that? Well, MSHA wants you to write down by make and model. So we were having guys fill these out and send them in, and they would say backhoe or water truck or something like that. You can't do that. It has to be Peterbilt 348 water truck, Caterpillar backhoe 420E, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no way to control what people are writing down for tasks. In addition, we were getting people that would write down pipe wrench. I've even seen coffee pot. I even saw a 5023 come in once for coffee pot. And as people know in the industry, there is such a thing as a Part 50 audit. And a Part 50 audit is when MSHA comes in and says, hey, I want to see pretty much everything, including your training. And if they start pulling training certificates and they see people are filling them out incorrectly, that there are problems with them, that can cause a lot of problems. So this is one of the things that we had to do, was actually screen our training as it came in. Something else is the date, right? You just can't control what people write. Here, for example, somebody wrote the task, or sort of the task, in where the date should go. This one, as far as the training time, what they're saying in this one is that in one day, so from the 25th of May 2014 until the 26th, this guy was trained on the winch truck, the 4,000-gallon water truck, the ohms test, which shouldn't even have a 5023 for that, the backhoe, okay, what backhoe, and then crane. So once again, he's saying in one 12-hour shift, he was trained on all that stuff. Again, you're setting yourself up for failure if you do this. And then as far as the training goes, you can see this person, he put is a new task and for an experienced miner. We actually had this happen a lot because the guys that are filling this out will say, well, it is a new task, and then they'll look at the guy and they'll say, well, he is an experienced miner, so they'll sit there and start checking these boxes. And then as far as the completion time, you can see here they didn't even put the completion time in here. So once again, there's a lot of ways that we can go wrong with this paper training, which is why it's so nice to actually have the app there so that we can control some of this stuff. Once this paper training is completed, we're definitely not out of the woods, because that paper training is completed in the field, and then it gets sent in to the local office, and then we scan it into the system. I'm going to talk about where it goes from scanning the system, but when we get those 5,023s like I just showed you, which are the bad ones, the ones that are filled out incorrectly, okay, what do we have to do with them? Send them back out in the field. And I can tell you without a doubt that the vast majority of times that we send that 5,023 back out into the field to get fixed, it is vanished, gone, we don't ever see it again. Once we get it in our system, a lot of people will move from rig to rig. And so what happens is, as they move from rig to rig, they will forget that little red book back in their pickup truck. And now all of a sudden, they need their 5,023. So then we, in the safety department, have to then go in, look for the 5,023s, email them to the office, where then they print them out and give it to the person. So way too many hands to go through. And when we're actually looking for that training, right, all we had were these big spreadsheets. You know, we didn't know, a lot of these 5,023s, bless you, would have more than one thing completed. And so it's not like we could sit there and say what each one was, because there just wasn't enough room. So we'd have to blindly go in there and try to figure out what the 5,023s were. And when we were doing our matrices, we had to do it by hand. We'd have to input all this into spreadsheets, try to figure out who has what training, when does it expire, et cetera, et cetera. So it was extremely time consuming. And there was a lot of room in there for us to get in trouble and have guys on rigs who maybe didn't have the training, and to have training out in the field that was not filled out correctly. So, when we sat back and started looking at our training, we said to ourselves, okay, well, how are we going to do this training? So right now, I look at this 5,023 right here with all this training on it. It does not at all tell me how the training was done, right? It says the training, this guy was trained on, for example, that F-250 right there. Well, how was he trained on that, okay? Well, we looked at all of our equipment that we had in the fleet, and we started putting together our training plans. So, one of the big projects we had before we could even launch all this digital training was to come up with procedures. Now we have over 650 procedures, but we wanted to make sure that we actually have written procedures for how we want these things done. Because we know that if we don't have a written procedure of how to actually do the task, then how on earth are we going to be able to train for it? So we went through, we updated all of our JSAs, and then we started putting them together. Now this is before the app, so this is back in paper times. So we had these training packages. We had training packages for our mobile equipment, and there would be sign-offs on here, and then all the JSAs printed out with them. We're talking 35, 40 pages at a time. The guys would go through them, the guys would be observed doing the task, and then there would be a whole series of sign-offs. So what we were telling the guys in the field was, okay, you're gonna review these JSAs, then you're gonna demonstrate them as part of your normal job, you're gonna be observed doing it, you're gonna sign in here, and then when this is all done, then you can issue a paper 5,023. Well, as you can imagine, it didn't really end up working out all that well, because these would be filled out incorrectly, or we get a training package without the 5,023, or the 5,023 without the training package. So once again, we were definitely headed in the right direction, but it was not working out well for us. So, in middle of 2019, we started working with GroundHog LMS, and they have an app in which we can fill out digital training and track it, et cetera, et cetera. And we have been using it. We piloted in 2019, and we've been using it ever since. It's been working out great for us. So, this is what the app itself looks like right here. If I'm going to do training using the app, I'm going to open up the training, and then I'm going to come in and start making some choices. And I can say this because Satish is sitting in here. I think Satish originally, when we were working with this app, because it's been really great to be able to customize it so much working with Satish, but he wanted a lot of choices, or not a lot of choices, but let's say he wanted more choices than I wanted. So I was constantly saying to him, like, look, the fewer things that our guys have to choose, the better. So it's been more and more automated. He's usually like, well, why don't you tell your people to do it the right way? I'm like, look, trust me. The fewer choices that they have in here, the better off they're gonna be. So you choose off, okay, so I'm doing a water truck, for example. So you're gonna go through here, you can search it by name, go to the water truck, and then you can choose what make and model. So now we can actually control what's going on that 5023. So choose that, you're gonna come down here, and then you're gonna choose the person, you're gonna choose the person, and this is a fake training person we have in the system to do that practice training for the guys. So you type in the person's name, boom, there you are, and then now you can actually start doing the training. So this is a training plan or a training package for our water truck. So this is all the things that we want our people to know before they operate a water truck. Everything from inspecting the water truck, doing the brake check, all the way to changing tires and locking it out. So as a company, we've decided this is what we want them to know. So when they open up the app, it is built using all those different JSAs. That right there is a link. The theory of this is that when the driller or the supervisor of the rig are doing this, and really what this is a training verification, is that they can open this, and this is our JSA, so they can kind of follow along on their phone while the person is actually demonstrating this task. So this isn't something that we want the guys to do, pretend, like a fake thing. We want them to actually do it for real as part of their job, and then all that our supervisors basically are doing is watching to make sure they do it correctly. So our supervisor will have this open. He'll be watching the guy inspect the water truck, right? Because how often do we inspect the water truck? Every shift, right? We always inspect it before we use it, so that's something that happens all the time. So they're gonna sit there, they're gonna look at this JSA on their phone, make sure the guy does it correctly, and then if he does it correctly, there's my fake signature. He's gonna say, okay, here's where the fake training person in this case, whoever the person is being trained is gonna sign it with their finger, and then whoever the observer is gonna sign it with their finger. Then you're gonna put in who it was, and that'll make a little more sense later, and then when the date was. Now, this is, I think, one of the best things to come along, right here. In progress and completed. So at the bottom here, you can see that there's two buttons, in progress and completed. Well, these training packages right here, they are not designed just to be done in one big sweep, right? They're not all designed to be done at the same time. They're designed to be actual observations of the guys doing it in the field. So at the start of the shift, sure, you can sign the guy off on inspecting the water truck, you can sign the guy off on doing the 7-step brake check, because that's what he'll be doing. But is he necessarily going to be doing a lockout that day? No. Same thing with changing tires? Not necessarily. So you can actually pause the training like this, you put in progress, and then it goes into the system. And now later, when you're actually doing like lockout, tag out, or maybe you're changing the tire, you go to the app again, to the training in the app, and you can type the person's name in here. In this case, it's the fake training person. And then his training pops up, and then this can continue. Part of these training plans and packages are also quizzes. You can put quizzes inside the actual training plans, which I like a lot because it makes sure that people are, let me just say that it prevents some of the pencil whipping that you don't want to have happen on the field, because at least now, this person has to actually go through and answer some questions, not sitting there just signing. They can actually go through. So this is what the guys in the field are going to be seeing on their phone, is this little test. They pass it to the guy, and if he chooses the wrong answer, it won't let him proceed. So it's just making sure that they at least understand. In this case, this is a fire extinguisher inspection one, and this is just making sure they understand when it has to be inspected, when does it expire, so at least you know what they have, at least the baseline knowledge here. So they're going to go through, they're going to keep doing those sections as they go along, being observed, and then at the end there's a final sign-off. And I should also mention too that this is just how we at National have set this up. There's a way of building these training plans. So this isn't what the app is automatically set at. This is just how we have customized it to our usage. So it's kind of like building a web page where there's like a thing on the side, you can kind of drag boxes and signatures and pictures and all that kind of stuff. And so you can customize it however you want, but this is the way that we found works best for us, And we've been using it now for a year or two, and it's been working really well. So at the end, we just have a final signature, final sign off, where people are going to sign off and say, yep, this is done, this is complete. And then it's going to ask how many hours of training have you done, which is really handy to have if you're ever being audited by MSHA or anything like that. So you can write in there how many hours of training. And I should also mention that when you are signing, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a timestamp and there's also a location stamp. So yes, they're putting in how many hours of training they did, but if push ever comes to shove, you can actually go in there and really see when these were being signed and completed, where it was happening. So you're going to put in how many hours of training. And then this is the nice part. As a safety manager, this is what I just love to see, is that all of this stuff is pre-filtered. So you don't have to worry about guys putting in the wrong thing. So the fact that it's task training, what it is that you're being trained on, that the dates are good, that it's national, and then you're going to go to generate certificate. And I know that this screen right here, and when I teach this with our guys that work for national, this is always intimidating, the screen right here, because they look at it and they see that there's like many different choices. But the beauty of this is that they don't need to do anything with those. Those are all set the way they were. So literally all they're doing is looking over that to make sure it looks right. There's nothing there that they need to change as far as what kind of training is it, done it. So then all they got to do is sign it. And you can see even down here, we've got our MSHA ID number in here and everything. So all they do is they come down and they're going to sign here. And then you add that. You can see it pops in up here. And then the trainer and all the initials are already here. My name's already here. All that stuff is here. And the date's automatically in here. And you're just going to sign. So that's all you have to do is sign for that 5023. And this training plan also won't let you move on if you haven't completed anything. So it's not like you can have half of it completed and then go. It won't let you go unless everything is completed. So you're going to sign it, and then it thinks for a second, and then boom, it issues a 5023. And then all you have to do is look over that 5023. If it looks good, if it looks like everything is right, all you do is you hit add certificate, and then instantly this goes right up into the system. And now it's in that employee's training, which is what I'm going to talk about next, is how to actually access that training. So it's really easy to complete these 5023s. There's actual training documentation to back them up, and we know that they cannot be filled out incorrectly. So as far as tracking them goes, there's a couple different ways of managing the training. In this app, there's actually a certificates button at the bottom. And what that is, if you have maybe a piece of equipment that's new on site that comes out on site, you can search in here to see who in the company has training on that water truck or that whatever it is. You can actually look in here to see who has training on that. There's also a people tab that has the people's training files in here. So this is a way for the supervisors on the rig to actually go in here and take a look and see what kind of training they have and make sure that the guys have training. There's also, and that's all the app base, there's also a website. And this is what our crew leaders out in the field, our supervisors really, really like, is that you can build matrices, training matrices, specific to each project. So there is one that's a big one for all of them, for the whole company, which there's, as you can imagine, a ton of data in there. But there are also specific ones to each, in our case, drill rig. So each supervisor is putting one of these together for his own drill rig. And green means it's good. The purple here means that it's expiring. Red means it has expired. And then there's also yellow in there to tell you it's in progress. So you can really quickly take a snapshot and see what's going on his own rig. In addition, on the website, you can go in there and you can look at the employee's training file, and you can pull this up. And of course, view is view. You just hit that, 5023 comes up. That way you can download it and email it or print it out or whatever it is you need to do. And also there's the raw training plans, raw completed training plans in there as well. So you can see here is a training plan that was completed with all the signatures and all the timestamps, so that if anyone ever asks you or questions it, you can actually go and you can download these and have these as your backup to say, hey, this is how, so when MSHA says, hey, how did that person get trained on the water truck? You can actually download that and say, this is how that person was trained on the water truck. But the big thing that I'm extremely excited about are these. And I'm not at all a technical guy, so QR codes were a pretty new thing to me, but this is really one of the keys to this whole system. So the only people at National who actually have the app are the supervisors, the drillers or the tool pushers or field supervisors, the guys that run the drill rigs. But every single person in the company is issued their own QR code. So what we do is we have cards with your name and ID number, and then a QR code. We even have hard hat stickers for them. Guys will have them on their hard hat. So now you don't have to worry about losing your training, because that is your training right there. So if I lose all my paper training like in the past, I'd be in bad shape. But now, as long as you have your QR code, which we can do all kinds of things to get you it and everything, it's very easy to do, you can track your own training. So the guys in the field don't need an app, they don't need to have a massive data plan in order to handle the app. They scan their QR code, it opens up, and that's all their training. And all they've got to do is click on the view, and their 5023 or whatever that training is will come and pop out. That way they can just show it to whoever's asking about it. And we have gone through several MSHA inspections, and this has worked really well. So we've never had an issue with MSHA, they've been very happy with it. And a lot of them are very impressed with how quickly we can actually come up with our training. And the nice thing is too, is we know that when we are using this in an MSHA inspection, that training is actually filled out correctly. So we have rolled all of that into a driller progression, which is a career advancement system. So we view drilling as a trade. So what this really is a journeyman driller program. So this is the way that we work at National. You start off as a new hire, and then you go all the way up to Driller 3. So Driller 3 is of course the most senior driller. He's ready to be a supervisor. For each one of these steps in the career, we have the criteria that we want them to know. So this is just a list of all the different tasks, equipment, et cetera, that they need to be trained on in order to be considered either in this case, Core Driller System 1, or in this case, a Core Driller System 2. And this is all stuff that they can access on their phone. It's not in GroundHog, but it's available to them there as well. So then, as they look at this is all stuff that they do as part of their normal day. So this is all literally a verification that they know how to do what they're supposed to do for that job. So fueling equipment, labeling sample bags, labeling core boxes, all the things that we do at National. So they go through there, and the guys they'll use their QR code to figure out what they're missing. We have training packages like we talked about that issue 5023s, but then we have a ton of training cards, which are very similar, except they don't actually issue. That's another thing you can do, is you can control what this issues. Sometimes it won't issue anything, it'll just go in the system as complete. Sometimes it will actually issue a 5023. And then there's sign-offs, which is observation. This is just saying, yep, I watched this guy do it, he's all good. As part of all this, we have tests. So part of the GroundHog LMS is that there are tests that you can go to. And so what I mean by that is actually on the laptop, take a time test to make sure that the people understand what it is that they're being tested on. This is more for our drillers when we start getting into advanced, how to do a cement job, how to calculate displacement, gravel pack, all that kind of thing. We have tests that are built up to make sure that our drillers not only know the hands-on tasks and packages, et cetera, but that also they know the fundamental knowledge behind it as well. So that's all incorporated into it, so that when they finish the test, it'll go in the system and say, yep, this guy has done this next piece of their career advancement. So as far as the career advancement goes, there's a couple ways of getting to it. You can either go on the website and you can look. All right, it's individual development plan. This says all these things that the guy is supposed to do and what he's finished and what he has not finished. But really the best way to do it is the QR code. Because when you scan the QR code, this is what you get. And you can scroll down the QR code, and this is telling you that you've already done your water truck. It's in progress, you have 250, but you haven't started this, you haven't started this. And that way these guys, they don't have the app, but they can still control their own progress and make sure that they are moving forward in the company. And it definitely has increased morale, because one of the biggest things that I get from people who are coming from other companies is they say, I've been in this other company and I always have to, ask and beg for a raise, all this kind of stuff. So what we've done is we've tied this to raises, so that as these guys complete these different sections, they automatically get a raise. So it's a win-win. We're encouraging them to get trained. We want to make sure they know what they're doing in the field, but also they're going to actually get money out of it, so there's a reason to do it. So it's been pretty awesome to see. There's about 30 of these different criteria per job, And it's been amazing to watch on these training matrices, because we only just rolled out the progression this year in January, but it was amazing to watch it go from these giant matrices where it's pretty much white, empty, to now there's just tons of training being done. It's truly it's a wonderful thing. So, I know I only had the 20 minutes, so that's what I prepared. So are there any questions on anything?
So,
Yes, sir.
with that, your regular 5023 is the operator, the guy who's gonna be running the gear is supposed to get his paint copy. Does he get something sent to him with that?
So that'll be, so the way, that's a good question. So basically the way that it works is that this QR code is his pink copy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So when he goes to, that didn't work, hang on. So when he goes to this, and which everybody has, this is not my computer, so I apologize to everyone. I'm gonna do it the old fashioned way. So basically this right here, that is his pink copy. So we have a digital in our records, and he has access to a digital on the QR code, and he also has access through the app. His supervisor can pull up his training through the app. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So what happens if the guy's phone goes dead while MSHA's out there, or the tablet goes dead? What do they do there?
Good question. So you can actually give this, so you have a certain amount of time to get your training.
Okay.
So like if MSHA shows up and says, I want to see your training, if you can't provide it at that instant, it's not the end of the world. So it's usually about, it depends on the inspector, but it's usually around 15 minutes-ish or so. Now on this rig, I should also have mentioned that this app does not require service. So the phone or the tablet would actually have to be broken. So in other words, that driller, if there's no service on the site, he can open up his phone, and that thing is constantly downloading all the training, so he'll be able to show on the phone, here's the training. Now what we've done too is we've actually given a QR code to a person, and the person has gone up, it wasn't an MSHA inspector, it was somebody at the mine, and they just drove up to where they were serviced, and they scanned it, and they just looked through it, and then they could actually sit there and look through all the training and say, yep, everything looks good. So it was basically like, that was a very good question, but there's a lot of different backups. So there's the guys on the rigs, the driller and the tool pusher, who have it on their phone, but also this QR code, as long as you can get to service, you can show it to them. And what we always tell our guys, or not we, I always tell our guys to do, is that when they get issued their annual, either their new miner training or their annual refresher, is take a screenshot. So every time I have a class, I just tell everybody in the class, take a screenshot of it, because when I do this in my class, I issue like, we have 350 in the company, well, 330 in the company. So this year I issued 330 annual refresher training through GroundHog. Like, we do not issue paper anymore. And so every class where I was doing this, I just told everybody, scan your QR code, which gives them practice scanning their QR code, open up your training, make sure it's there, and then take a screenshot. And then that way, even if there's, that's like the last resort, if there's, phones are broken and you don't have service, at least you've got your new miner or your annual refresher training on your phone. That's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
Was MSHA personnel involved in the beginning idea of this, or how's their feedback been?
Not the beginning idea. I believe that you consulted with them, Satish, right? When this was being created?
Yeah, we did. 3 years ago, we actually consulted with them. And the main thing was, hey, is a digital copy okay? And once we got the go ahead, we also checked with the lawyers. Harsh Blackwell is a very well-known MSHA law firm. Once they approve that, it meets their requirements, then that's when we started moving ahead. So far we haven't had any MSHA guy, any MSHA person complain about digital records. So. And they've been moving as well as if MSHA comes to your site now, they're coming out with a computer aren't they now? So they're okay with.
So can they pull this up on their?
Yeah, on their,
you can pull
it
your
doesn't even take
phone
an
out.
app.
I can pull it right now and take a picture.
Oh yeah, I
and see
probably
your
should have.
answer.
So you can
Yeah,
scan that
you
right
don't
now.
need to
Yeah, probably should have said that.
Take a picture, just open the camera, scan that
Yeah.
QR code.
Really?
Yeah.
So like Bill's phone's dead, you got the inspector, they can just.
You can give him that QR code. He doesn't need the app. He can just go up. Yeah, I probably should have
It'll
mentioned
show
that.
the link groundhogapps.com.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, just click on that.
And now you can go and, once
And
you
then
get
just
service.
click on view.
use it.
If it's pulled it up, just click
Yeah,
on view.
fake training person go.
Yep. But we've had a ton,
On view.
I mean, we've had a ton of MSHA inspections. We have 23 rigs that are working on mine sites, so we've been using this for our mobile equipment for the past
So
year
5,000
and a half now,
insurance,
something like that.
yeah.
And we have never had an issue. In fact, we just got an email from MSHA saying that they were very impressed with how fast we could actually, give them the 5,023s, because I can tell you from personal experience in the old day, if one of those guys on the rig didn't have their paper training, it was a problem, because now we had to go in the system and hope that that training was in there, and it's like a big mess. So it's been really nice to just be like, yep, here you go. Yeah. I mean, if we really wanted to be a smart, we could just send MSHA inspector a bunch of QR codes and say, here you go. But, yeah, it's a good question. Yes, sir.
Some of the mine sites that I've worked on require you to be retrained every year, even as like OEM or whatever. Does that have, alerts for that?
It
Like,
does.
hey, Johnny's running out of time on that.
Yep, it does. I didn't have time because it was supposed to be like 20-some minutes, 30 minutes. But yes, on the dashboard, on the website, which I don't really have a screenshot of but see how it says dashboard right here? So if I went to that, there's a big giant matrix, but then there's also alerts. And it'll say, just like you said, so-and-so, I think it's 90 days out, it starts giving you alerts that this training is about to expire.
I think his question is slightly different, but maybe slightly different. For example, if you've trained somebody on an AD30, and if the guy has not operated the AD30 for 365 days, then he needs to be retrained. However, if he just worked on it yesterday, the training is still valid from yesterday plus 365 days. So if we connect into your fleet management system, that we automatically keep track of that as well. So you don't always have to train your guys on the AD30 every year, for example.
So each time that somebody gets on, let's say a CT20, they fill this out and it tells them that they're working on CT20 also?
Not
No.
this, but
Oh.
but there is a system that does that. So we do not do that, but there is a system that does that.
Okay.
According to the rules, according to MSHA rules, there's that 365-day thing that you're mentioning, right?
Right.
And a lot of companies try to do that on Excel spreadsheets, it doesn't work.
Right. Yes,
So what are
sir.
the reporting capabilities? What are the reports?
Oh, so the reports at the bottom, you can actually go in there, and that's where you can divide up by like the different rigs in there. You can sort of see. The real main reporting though would be done on the dashboard, where you open up. And once again, I didn't have time to go through like this whole big thing. That's why I don't have it on here. But you can open up the dashboard, and I'd be happy to show it to you on my laptop after. But you just go in there, and there's a huge matrix, and you can just go in there and look for who has what training. Also, you can go in the certificates, and you can pull certificates. If you want to say who in the company is trained on this water truck, you go in here, and it'll list every single person in the company who's trained on that. Yeah, it's very nice. But right now, we're just excited to see all the training being done and making sure it's done correctly. Because I can tell you, I mean, now I'm cutting into your beer time. I realize I can get long-winded, but one of the great things that this really made us do was actually go through and so you can also put paper copies in here. So we didn't have everyone in the company redo this. So we went through I went through all of the old training documents and said basically like, yes, this counts or this doesn't count. So it was really nice because we screened all that. So we know that all the paper copies that are in the system are done correctly. As you can imagine, we had a ton of people like, hey, I got trained on this. Well, yeah, but it said backhoe or it said water truck or whatever. So we went through and we screened all that. So there is a way of actually putting that paper training into here, which is nice. And not to even keep going and going, but you can even, through the app, put the training in. So like the one paper thing we deal with is site training as we go from mine to mine, because if the mine doesn't have GroundHog, they can't issue it through GroundHog. So in the app, you can actually go in and open up the person's training file. This would be a supervisor, and there's a little plus, and you actually hit the plus, and then you can just with your phone, you put in there what it is, and just take a picture of it with your phone, and then that automatically goes in the system. So
Now, does it go in as a JPEG or does it go in as a PDF?
The
JPEG,
picture goes in as a JPEG.
yeah.
Okay.
If you open up your camera and snap it, then it's a JPEG, but anything that's issued from the system is a PDF.
Now, can you like open a scanner on your phone and scan it and put it into the system with your phone too as a PDF?
Can you attach it Technically speaking, it doesn't do that today, but you could always do that. But if you're taking a picture, why do it as a PDF as well?
You can do it on the website though. So like if you go on the website, you can put PDFs. It doesn't have to be pictures. So
Cause
like
there's
you
been
can.
times that my guys take pictures of the certificates and send them to me, and then when I go to print them out to put them in the thing, they print out all big and crazy, and I gotta go back and I gotta make them PDFs, or I gotta put them in Word and resize them and make them print out in 8.5 by 11 paper
Yeah.
instead of, 22 by 50,
For us, since all the pictures get taken by the camera, it's all a standard size.
Okay.
By the phone, I'm sorry, it's a standard size.
Yeah, my guys are doing their phone, it's crazy some of the pictures I get.
Okay. Okay.
The one weakness which we put a kibosh on was we have not many, but we have a couple. As you always probably in every company, there's somebody who can figure out the little loopholes. It's amazing because you talk to these guys and they're like, I don't know anything about technology, but the next thing you know, they're finding all these little loopholes in the technology. Well, they were getting frustrated. There was a couple people getting frustrated because their paper training wasn't in the system. So they actually were going in there and starting like taking pictures of their training, but luckily that was very easily stopped. But there was that little bit, so they don't do that anymore, but it's just funny to see all the little ways people can figure out to like go around, game the system, Oh, I don't know anything about technology, and next thing you know, they're like hacking into it. Yeah. Any other questions?
So how long you guys been doing this now, 2 years?
Well, we piloted it in 2019, actually. Halfway through 2019, we started piloting it on a couple rigs. And then in 2020, we rolled it out as far as 5,023s for mobile equipment. And then in January, we rolled it out for the career advancement. Yeah. So it's been working great. We've been doing it for a while.
Great.
Well, thank you all. I very much appreciate you guys coming. And I enjoy talking about it. It's working really great for us. That's why I'm very happy to talk about it. So, but thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.